live on Facebook right now. So I'll introduce you to our Facebook guests. You probably met Maggie Buxton. Hey guys, this is Mr. Chris Harold from the RSF president here in Whangarei. So Maggie, you probably know from the 11/11 Armistice. Yep. Also we've got Jasmine Honey, she's her father did the Itchy Trigger Finger convention for gamers. And my cousin in Fiji. So this has been about.
Finally, I was staying home 3 days a week to write.
Stanley passing away yesterday, so it's a
2 days a week to do my
tribute
editing
show, and then we're going to move to.
But it was always in the daytime. I was free at night. Luckily, I was a fast writer. So by 5 or 6 o'clock, I was through writing the book, and my wife and I would go out to dinner or to a movie or whatever.
Hey, bud. Okay, as you guys know, we put on Facebook that we're going to be talking about Armistice, and so this is the reason Mr. Harold is here talking about that. And I'm going to play a song after this called "Hanging on the Old Barbed Wire," sung by Frank McConnell. I spent Sunday all day listening to old documentaries about the Armistice and about the music and reading comic book. If you guys didn't see, Charlie's War is a series of comics that were part of the battle series back in the day, and they've been collected as Charlie's War now. So it's written by Peter, no, not Peter Milligan. I'll get the name wrong. I'll put it up later, guys. You probably saw the post anyway, so but it's awesome. Alright, we're just going to play from Blue Dot Music. This is "Hanging on the Old Barbed Wire," sung by Frank McConnell. I was quite quite taken aback. I didn't realise. I went home after posting that the picture of what Maggie and Kim had done on the wall there at the library, and my dad saw that and said, "Hey, thank them for doing that."
You want to find the Colonel,
and the first time in my life I heard from him that he had lost 4 grand-uncles, Irish grand-uncles in the First World War.
Yeah. You find it's something like that quite often. That a lot of the people that, even the people that were in the war, won't talk about it, and there'll be something like that will just trigger something.
Yeah.
And they'll open up a bit more, and you find quite often it can take months and months and months to get a lot of stuff out of them. But it's quite funny how it happens.
Yeah,
it really is.
He hasn't talked much about things like that, but it was just interesting to see that. And I said, well, we're going to have to talk about that. Yeah, it's a lot of times I find that older folk don't realise that for us younger people, that's part of our heritage.
It is.
And if they don't share that, we can't
forever.
pass it on.
No, and it's gone forever.
Yeah, and I'm always, whenever I hear him say something, or I hear anybody say something, about the past, I put that into my head, and and so that, and even if I'm talking to somebody, I'll pass that knowledge on.
Yeah.
And is it decimating? I know there's a word for it when you pass knowledge so that a lot more people hear about it. And so, yeah, I remember a gentleman the other day, I think it was Peter, I'm not sure, he's with the folk music, and Dave, youth folk music, and he was mentioning about an incident, a barbed wire situation that a person's dad had gone through, and he heard about it and said, we need to know more about this. And so he wrote a book about it, and then about this situation where they carried this guy about 300 meters through jungle, which took them all day because he was in so much pain and stuff. Alright, so welcome back. This is Malfunction. This is the GeekOut show. As always, you know, we play a lot of different things. We talk to a lot of different people, and basically what interests me, and I am interested in just about everything, as you know. And so today I have Mr. Chris Harold from the RSA here in Whangarei, a president actually. I'm gonna and the reason I asked him to come on was because we had Maggie Buxton and Kim Newell do a armistice artistic this past weekend on the library, and sponsored by Creative Northland, and they put together this amazing visual multimedia event. And so while I was waiting for that, I went and hopped over to the RSA, because I've been meaning to go and talk to them about war stories, really, because I'm working on a comic book about former SAS officers who are Kiwis, of course. And so I asked Mr. Harold to come aboard and talk about armistice and share about the RSA, and also about what you are doing to commemorate. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to let him carry on about that. So please introduce yourself.
Right, I'm Chris Harold, the president of the Whangarei RSA. I have been for the last 4 years. I'm into my 5th year as the president, and enjoying it. I have to enjoy it, otherwise I would not be there. But I got into the RSA mainly through my father, who was in the Navy in World War II, and as we've just been talking before we come on the air, we don't seem to talk to one another, the elders, about what happened during the war, and I think if it's not spoken about, it's lost forever, and future generations will never ever find out what happened. Like with my own father, as I say, he was in the Navy. It's only about 3 years ago that I actually found out where he served. I knew he was in the Navy, but that was all I could ever get out of my dad. And it's like any of their returned guys, very few want to open up and tell what it was like. And you know, when you see a lot of these movies and articles on TV, you can see why they don't want to talk. I'm personally, I'm very emotional, and I find even just watching some of the movies and seeing what they've gone through for us to be here today. So you know, it's something, as I say, for me personally, I've enjoyed the position I'm holding, and I enjoy the information that I get from a lot of the veterans in the RSA. Even veterans in the RSA won't talk about what happened. You've virtually got to, how can I put it, hoodwink them into opening up. And one of the things I've done is, you see something on TV, you'll sit down with one of the veterans and just mention that, and all of a sudden they'll come out, oh yeah, that was where I was. And quite often even their mates that are sitting with him don't know where he was and where he served. So it's very valuable information that stored in my head. I might never ever use it, but some of the stories I've heard, I personally wouldn't want to repeat. Number one, I break down because it's very heart-rending. Armistice Day actually was formulated 100 years ago, in effect, in commemoration and remembering those that did not come home after World War One. World War One, as has quite often been named, the Great War. It was a war. Sure, they had rifles, they had grenades, they had, as we've talked about earlier, barbed wire barriers. Those barbed wire barriers created more problems than what they possibly in a lot of the rifles did. But it all comes back to what they did for us, what they did over there, when they came back, and after the end of the World War One, Armistice Day was started, and it's continued on. And it's, to me, and a lot of veterans and a lot of people around New Zealand and the world, it's still very much in their heart of thanking those ones that never came home, but also thanking the ones that have come home and either they have passed since or are still alive today. And it shows when you look at Armistice Day. Here in Whangarei, 10 years ago, you might have got 10, 15 people coming along to commemorate Armistice Day. This weekend in Whangarei here, we estimated around about 600 to 700 people.
Wow.
And that's to us is a major. Obviously, Anzac Day is a bigger commemoration service. Our biggest turnout we've had here in Whangarei, we've had up to around about 9,000 to 9,500 people.
Wow. And
that blew us away. We just never ever anticipated that sort of following. And I think a lot of that comes back to the children. The children now are asking questions, being more and more involved. Last year, I arrived at our memorial site in Laurie Hall Park in Whangarei at about 4:30, 4:45.
This is in the morning?
In the morning.
Yeah.
And it was still dark, believe me, and cold. And there was two young children came down and were looking at the memorial, and I went and spoke to them, and I said, you're here very early. And their comment was, we would never ever miss it. We come down here to make sure we got a good seat and a good view of everything going on.
Yeah.
And these are children that were 9, 10 years old, and that really gets to you. You don't expect it, and to see these young children doing that, and then during the rest of the day, and over the last 6 years, 5, 6 years, the crowds have got bigger. There's more and more youth participating in it. So it's fantastic to see it, and our last comment on any commemorations is lest we forget what's going on now and with the youth and the way it's being followed. It will never be forgotten.
Yeah, and I think that's what people don't realise, is that we're hungry for knowledge, and this is our generation where we're so saturated with information, so we can actually go, hey Google, what's Anzac about?
Yep.
And we'll have it.
It's all there.
And, whereas before we'd have to go look it up, go and ask someone, and then not even get an answer, go to the library, and you can't take the book out, and I think I was lucky. I grew up at a time where social studies, you learn about the war.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the great thing about growing up in that period here in New Zealand, it was part of it. That was just there, part of your social studies. I'm not sure what we're taught now, but we do have the internet now. So if there's anything we see online, what is Armistice? Google, what is Armistice? And next thing you know, there, you go to YouTube, you got videos, all there, you got all the songs, you got people talking about it. And I think the amazing thing is that it's all available to us.
I think there's more information available now than there has ever been. Yeah. And I think that's why the youth have got right into it. They're all into their computers and things like that. And as you say, go onto Google or any of those ones, type in anything you want to know, and that information is there. Whereas going back over 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't there. Yeah. The only way, as you say, was the library, and there was restrictions on what you could do. You couldn't copy that, you couldn't photocopy it, you couldn't do this to it. So I think now the younger generation have got more knowledge than we would ever have had, and it's right at their fingertips.
Yeah. So. And the other thing is, and there's a lot of more mediums, like we're talking about movies and stuff, and we had Dunkirk, which was probably one of the most atrocious films out, because it whitewashed a lot of things about people. And talking about which, the most recent Doctor Who episode, which was this weekend, is called Demons of the Punjab, about the partition in 1947, and it was just this weekend. And a lot of people don't know about that, because after the war, when the British left, decided, you know, we're just going to hand India back to the Indians, what that then did was say to the Indians, well, it's for the Indians, isn't it? So we'll divide up the country and we'll push the Muslims to one side, and, you know, and that's what, if you watch that episode, it's very important. And in reference to that, you know, I thought it was quite interesting because there was an Indian who went to Siam or Singapore or Siam to fight in the Second World War, you know, and it was like, what happened to all these Indians who were fighting in the Second World War, you know, and other people, you know, and Asians and stuff that were in there. And I think it's it was quite important to have that. And recently I heard a story about that situation where I wasn't aware of, where you know, it mentions in the show that 1 million Muslims and people died in that battle to divide up India in 1947. It was, you know, and this is like, least we forget. And here, and then we have Second World War, and then we go it again. It's like only a couple, you know, less than, just over 20 years, I guess. Was it 30 years? Was it 1918? So 43. You know, and we didn't learn.
I think a lot of it comes back to they never ever learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes back to, I think, power struggles is a lot of it. But yeah, I'm sorry I missed that Demons of Punjab. It would have been very interesting.
Yeah, it's just come out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's programs like that that give you another perspective of what happened,
Yeah.
and is never brought out to the public, and the public don't know about it. I mean, the public don't know. Well, we assume they don't know. A lot of them will. They don't know actually, really, what countries were involved in World War One and World War Two.
Yeah.
Quite often you'll be reading something about some country, and all of a sudden there's a mention of it that they were in France during World War One or World War Two or wherever it might be. But it's never been publicised, and to me, I think if you really went into it, really in World War Two especially, but even World War One, I doubt if there would be very many countries that weren't involved in some way or another. And yeah, it's okay. As we said earlier, a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but it's part of that and other countries' history, and it was publicised, not brought out into the open, so the younger generation can learn about it, know about it. It'll never get anywhere.
Yeah.
And it will end up being forgotten. And as I say, we don't want it forgotten, because we certainly don't want to have another world war like we've had in the last two.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's been a lot of other wars: Borneo, Korea, Malaya, Vietnam. Yeah, even now.
Serbia and Croatia.
Yeah, and like right now in Afghanistan.
Yeah. Yemen.
Yeah.
With the Saudis.
You just don't. I mean, I was reading something literally a week ago that I know it hasn't happened, but from America they could launch a rocket and hit a target in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
You had, before World War One, World War Two, you had to see the enemy in their eyes to shoot them.
Yeah.
Now you can be 5,000 miles away.
Yeah.
And still, and to me that is not. Well, it's not war. I don't know what it is, but to me it's not a war.
I think it's basically dehumanizing people to the point where they just become numbers on a screen.
Yep.
And when you mentioned that, it was like first thing I could think of was drones.
Yeah.
You have a guy there, an operator sitting there in front of a computer with a joystick, basically moving that drone around. Over, you know, when I was in Yemen with Obama, and you know, in North Africa, and just drop a bomb on someone.
Yeah.
Anyone. Oh, that no, there's a family there
Yeah.
in a car moving along, but we don't know that because we're not there. And then we're killing a whole family line, or there was a wedding. There's like hundreds at a wedding. There was just, there were terrorists there. Well, actually, there's a wedding ceremony happening, and you just destroyed the entire village.
The whole thing, yeah.
Without seeing, like you said, the whites of their eyes. You don't know who they are, and so then you afterwards you apologize. Well, how do you apologize to a whole village?
Yeah.
There's no more village there. There's a whole generation of people have gone, and I think, people, this whole disconnect is happening because of that, because you're putting numbers on a screen and codes and stuff. And then the other side is this, because we have those numbers on screen and codes, we can actually find out that's what's happened.
Yeah. It's, as I say, it's not war nowadays. I think it's point scoring, really.
Yeah.
To me, that's all it is nowadays. It's point scoring, because they don't have to see who the enemy is. They know they're in that area and that's what they're going to hit. Well, to me, no, that's wrong.
Yeah.
As I say, I certainly don't want another world war. To me, if it happened, it would kill the rest of the world, and that would be the biggest mistake anybody could ever make. It would literally kill the world.
I think, we're at a stage where, America's been at war constantly since the Second World War.
Yep.
How do you have a nation that constantly at war? And that's the whole system.
It's based around
around war.
Around war, yeah, it is. Because every time I know we shouldn't speak ill of America, but every time they get a new president comes in, they change their way of what they're doing things. But it seems to come back to, again, point scoring.
Yeah.
And God forbid, the way I look at it, and my dad was the same. I wanted to enlist to go to Vietnam, and my dad threatened me that if I signed up, he'd cut my fingers off so I couldn't.
Yeah.
And I believed him. He was very straight up, didn't muck around, and hence I never went away to war. But as I say, joining the RSA is my way of doing something for those veterans that did go, and did something for the country and for me in the long run. So, I will never forget it.
I guess, him having seen it firsthand and experienced it with, and probably lost friends in it, and, with our Anzacs, and, he probably looks at it and goes, well, why would I want to put my son through that?
Yeah, that's very much what it is. And again, and a lot of his mates never came back.
Yeah.
And likewise, nobody likes losing a good mate, a good friend, a neighbour, a family, son, daughter, whatever it is. And to know that they've gone away to a war, and got you might as well say a 50-50 chance of not coming home, it's very hard. And I think that was my dad's view. Thankfully, he was in the Navy and based around Guadalcanal and the Solomons. They never saw a great deal of action. They did have a wee bit with the Japanese, but as I say, I'm very thankful he came back to my mum, and hence I'm here today, otherwise I wouldn't have been here. So, it's, wars have a very far-reaching area. Again, comes back to the age-old thing, publicity. If we don't have it, nobody will ever know. If you go onto the Sky TV and things like that, there's a history program there. Most of the history program in the evenings is about Germany, our Mr. Hitler, and what happened. And sure, it's giving the public a view of what did happen. And I'm not going to go into what it was, but I think everybody knows it, and it's, to me, it's criminal
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says, and that's my personal view. It's a criminal, and let's hope it never ever happens again.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put in a song. We'll come back and we'll carry on, and we'll learn about the history of the RSA, and also about the 100-year commemoration. Was there there's something that you guys put out recently for that?
For the 100 years of RSAs.
No, the armistice.
Yep, the armistice date will. Yep, I can go into a bit of that.
Okay, we'll be back after. This is a conscientious objector. Hello, Uncle Raj. Hey, Mum. Uncle's over in Suva, Fiji.
Oh, yep.
And Mum's over in Bay of Islands. And Murray Atwood, he is a local IT specialist. Welcome, guys. This is Mr. Chris Harold from the RSA here, Return Services Association in Whangarei. And we're just talking about armistice and the First and Second World War and its impact on people's lives. And we'll be back soon. At the moment, we're just playing a song called A Conscious Objector. Just check. The writer and performer is Alfred Lester. It's on the album called Oh, It's a Lovely World, Volume 2, and licensed to the Orchid Music.
It's quite interesting listening to some of the old music.
Yeah, I spent the whole day listening to, like on Sunday, just
going through it.
Yeah, it was just trying to choose the right one without sounding like an idiot, because I don't know much about it, as I said, but yeah, there was
Well, so even conscious objector, a lot of people misinterpret that.
Yeah. That was the thing. It was interesting. That's like one of the things that I was learning about the French was that you had all the officers were aristocrats, and they weren't in the front lines, so they're starved, and so you had all these starving officers, and they talk about the French did this, that they didn't, they gave up and stuff, but they were ill treated by their officers and their captains and their generals.
Yeah.
And so they decide, well, we're not going to put up with this anymore, and we're not going to, and then Americans go, oh, you French, you gave up.
They gave up.
And it's like, well, you weren't there to see how badly they were treated. You came in at the last minute, and this is the thing of understanding of the American thing is that they don't teach the real history of it.
No.
And so the kids grow up not knowing, and they just grow up knowing, oh, we stopped the Second World War, we stopped the Nazis. Actually, it was like 99.9% done.
Yeah.
And,
well, you'll find the Americans.
Welcome back. This is Malfunction with the GeekOut show here in Whangarei on 88.1 FM. Also, right now, we're streaming live on Facebook, and later on, that will go on to YouTube for today's show, probably next week. I'm here with Mr. Chris Harold of the local RSA, Whangarei. He's the president, and we've been talking about the Second World War, the First World War. It's been, and we've been acknowledging the armistice, the 100 years since the First World War. And the last song we just heard was The Conscientious Objector. Now, we were just talking about that off air, and would you like, Mr. Harold, talk about what that's all about?
Yeah, I don't want to say too much about it, but because a lot of the guys, and later, I must always mention the ladies and the men went away to war. It wasn't always just the men. The ladies get missed out quite often. but going back to the concept of the objecting, and that it's not always what everybody assumes. There's a lot of people, I'll say rather than men and women, that didn't go away, that sure, they objected to going, but there was other reasons. It wasn't just that they didn't want to go away and basically be put on the front line and fire a bullet to kill somebody. They had families that they still had to look after. I've read a couple of stories where the husband has objected to it, and he got abused, tarred and feathered, and things like that happened to him. But he had a wife, 4 children. If he'd gone away and hadn't returned, his wife would have been on his own looking after 4 children. He stayed back. As I say, he became a conscious objector and didn't go. He was locked up for a period of time as punishment. But when he did get out, he created more work for a lot of the other men and women that hadn't gone away to war. So it's, I mean, you know, to say that they were scared, yes, of course they were scared. Everybody was scared. But yeah, it's a subject that I have to be honest, I don't want to go into too much because people can take it the wrong way.
Yeah, and people tend to do that now. They like to they take anything out of context and politicize it. Yep. And they'll jump on social media and they'll go, oh, Mr. Harrell said this, you know, and Chris said that, and he's the president of the RSA, and this is what he believes. It's like, you know, it's like you kind of have to choose your words so carefully now that, you know, if you set away a sentence out of place without even people, you know, taking out of context, it's kind of strange. But I mean, yeah, thank you for that. I mean, like,
yeah,
it's kind of interesting because look, I mean, we know people can sit at home and judge how a person feels when they're in war. Oh, I would have gone.
Yeah.
You know, oh, I would have gone if it was my time, and all this, and then they don't realize that there was a few kids who did go.
Oh yeah. Well,
they signed up underage.
The youngest boy, and that's all, I'm sorry, but that's all you can call him, was a boy, 12 years old, from England, signed up and actually got into France, and they were marching out of France, and something happened. I think if I remember rightly, he fell over and skinned his leg or something, and he cried he wanted his mummy.
Yeah.
And one of the other guys with him thought, well, that's not the sort of thing that would happen. You don't cry for your mummy. When they took him to the hospital, bandaged him up, they eventually found out that he was only, as I say, 12 years old, and he was shipped back to England. Yeah. So, but, you know, that was the extreme. Yeah. There was others, obviously, that were still underage. There was even in New Zealand. There was New Zealanders that went away that were underage. They falsified their date of birth. Yeah. No proof was required when they enrolled. What was your date of birth? You just rattled off a number and it was written down, and that was your date of birth. And not a great deal of checking was done, so really we don't know how many New Zealanders went away underage. But we'll never know, thankfully. But
and that's the thing with history. I mean, a lot is lost. A lot of knowledge is lost because, and that's the thing that happened when I was watching the Doctor Who episode, Demons of the Punjab, and I was, and he was talking about him having gone to war and lost his older brother, and then coming back home to another war, you know, and not wanting, you know, having seen everything, seeing his friends die, and then coming home, and next thing you know, there's all the slaughter that's going to happen, and 1 million people will die, and it's kind of scary. I mean, like you said, we don't want to have another world war, but we constantly are at war around the world, and there's all these skirmishes and, you know, people getting killed, journalists getting killed. I mean, I'm being a journalist myself, I get worried when people go, well, let's kill the journalists, let's kill the messengers, and then, you know, when you kill the person who's trying to, you know, get the news out.
Get the news out, that's getting bad.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what all politics basically do. They attack the journalists because they say, well, if we can stop the truth from getting out, we can do whatever we want. And people don't, you know, a lot of people don't understand that. Is that you need truth to get out.
Yeah.
You need a balanced thing of both sides. And this is what's amazing about us now, is that we can see all sides of the world.
And,
you know?
And literally minutes later.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, First World War, Second World War. I mean, the First World War was possibly a month, 2 months before the news got from England or from Europe back to New Zealand. Now, something happens literally at 1 minute to 3.
Yeah.
At 3 o'clock, everybody in New Zealand knows about it.
Yeah.
Or has the capabilities of knowing about it. So nothing's hidden. And again, it's possibly why people know so much about what's going on, because it is instantly available to anywhere around the world. So, you know, I don't know. Is it good? Is it bad? Works both ways. Yeah.
Well, I mean, scripturally, I mean, you know, truth wins out.
Yeah.
And the more truth, the more knowledge is out, and we get to experience what other people experience around the world. And one of the things, I mean, like, it always comes down to the fact that everybody wants to be safe. They want their families to be safe, and they want to have a shelter over their heads. They want enough money to buy food. They want a good job. So why are we fighting everybody all the time if that's what everybody wants? You know, and it's like, but then we always have someone who's greedy and wants something that somebody else has got. And that's why we're constantly out, you know, at war about this or that, because somebody wants something from someone else.
Well, yeah, the other thing, like you know, we're talking about Armistice Day. Everybody was somebody's enemy. Yeah. Nowadays, if you look at it, all those enemies that we had, that all the countries had years and years ago, be it Germany, Japan, China, everywhere. Yeah. Nowadays, they're all our best friends.
Yeah.
You know, has war done any good? In some ways, yes, it has, because it's made us more appreciative of other countries, what those other countries can offer them, and what we can offer in return. So yeah, it works both ways. Armistice, you know, it's a commemoration of, to me, everybody working together, and the more it happens, to me, the better. So yeah, it's a good thing. It gives, at the end of the day, peace, which is what everybody wants. And you know, how do you talk about armistice? It's a subject it's very hard to talk about, because armistice basically means peace, and everybody joining together, coming up with solutions to make everything good amongst one another. What else can you say about it? Yeah, we want peace.
Yeah.
The armistice brings peace. Yeah, I'm, to be honest, at a loss of words. What else to say about it?
I mean, that's it. Armistice is peace.
Yeah.
And we decided that World War II would end, there'll be peace.
Yep.
And it's like we've got peace, and we know all these people, all the other countries, and we always, we have so many different friends because we are able to meet people from different countries. We've got Nicola and Izzy Jameson's going to be here soon. They just arrived, and they've just been to Russia. Yeah. In a question. Russia were our great friends in World War II.
Yeah.
They lost 20 million people.
It's it.
20 million people, which I still, can't comprehend the number. That is like 8 times New Zealand. Am I wrong there?
No, yeah, and that's it.
Yeah, 4 times New Zealand. Sorry, that's a lot. You know, a lot of New Zealand people, the entire country, 4 or 5 times over, who died.
For us, basically.
For us,
yeah.
in Russia.
And again, a lot of people don't realise that Russia were involved.
Yeah. And then communism hit them, and suddenly they were our enemies.
Yeah. Just things can change so quick, and yeah.
Well, my dad, my stepfather's dad died in, it was a minesweeper in Second World War, and he died in Russia from frostbite, and he wasn't honoured until a few years ago, because he died in Russia.
Because he died
as
in
a
Russia.
British servant.
Yeah.
You know, or citizen, he died in Russia and wasn't honoured. Like many hundreds of them, thousands of them that died there.
Yeah. I think that's is becoming again more and more spoken about, raised, and more people know about it. Because it's being spoken about more. And again, it possibly comes back to old Google again.
Yeah.
It's in there. People wouldn't have thought of Russia.
Yeah.
But Russia was very heavily involved for the Allies.
20 million.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
that sheer number blows my brain, you know. And then with India and afterwards 1 million.
Yeah.
You know, and
the numbers involved, you know, that went away to war, whether it was World War I or World War II, and the numbers that came back are horrendous to follow up on. But you can't appreciate the volume.
I mean, Maori battalion.
Yeah.
You know, and
Just
so
an example.
I mean, how many of them returned?
Yeah.
So you've got all these leaders amongst them, and even our own, you know, Kiwis, whatever, you know, everyone that went from New Zealand into these wars, and they don't come back.
Yeah.
And so you have families growing up with their fathers, their brothers.
Well, in New Zealand, it was publicised in Auckland over Armistice Day. How many families lost, not one, but in I think it was 3 families lost 4 members of the family.
Yeah.
And likewise 3, 2, and you don't appreciate that.
Because, I mean, there's a generation that's just been wiped out.
Completely wiped, yeah.
Because each father would have children.
Would have children.
And their
those
children,
have
children.
Yeah.
And
so just the loss of 1 or 2 from the family could in effect over the next couple of generations be a loss of
the entire line.
10, 15
Yeah.
that then just carry on generating again, people just don't appreciate the numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, just Whangarei itself here, or the Whangarei district, we had 290 crosses in the park, and the War Memorial in Whangarei. That was just literally Whangarei.
Yeah. I saw that walking up last week on Wednesday, and I was like, what's this? And then it just kind of, I couldn't figure my brain out. And then when I met Maggie, then I realized, okay, that's what that is. And because I took a photo.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And then I came back here, so I wasn't, rushed to get here to do the show. I took a photo, and it's my wallpaper, and it was just kind of on my Facebook. It's just seeing that.
It's things like that that actually hit home.
Yeah.
It brings, as you were saying, what's it for?
Yeah.
When somebody says 1 or 2 words, and it clicks.
Yeah.
And it'll stick with you for ages.
Yeah.
It really does.
All right. I noticed something when I was at the RSA the other day. There was some on the wall about the 100-year thing.
Yep.
Is there like a commemorative coin or something that's come out?
Yes. There's actually been 2. There's been a 50-cent coin that was put out.
2015. For the Anzac?
Yeah, for Armistice.
Oh, okay.
I didn't I should have brought one down actually. There is that, as I say, it's a 50-cent coin, it's legal tender.
Yeah.
On one side of it, it's got the Queen, and on the reverse side, it's got a poppy
Wow.
in the red colour, the poppy colour. You can still get them. A lot of they basically, all the banks had them, and they were giving them out as change.
Okay.
And,
Well, I'm gonna have to grab some because I've
Yep.
got the one from the Anzacs.
Yep.
Came out 2015, and I remember buying the whole lot,
Yeah.
and then half of it was given away as part of the shop thing. It's like, here, have this.
Well, that's what we find. Every RSA in New Zealand was offered one packet
Yeah.
of these 50-cent coins, and I think there was 20 coins in a packet. For us to do whatever we wanted to.
Yeah.
Whether we give them away, sell them, just use them as change. So yeah, that has come out. The Auckland RSA actually have produced a coin.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, it's not a coin, it's more of a medallion.
Yeah.
It's about 50 centimetres wide.
Yeah.
On one side it's got the white cross that a lot of people have seen over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
That's on one side, and on the reverse is again a blown up size poppy.
Yeah.
Now those are for sale.
Yeah.
The Whangarei RSA has a few, and I mean a few, but it's they were put out as a once only, and it was done through the Auckland RSA.
Yeah.
And we managed to get a box of 20. At the moment, I think we're down to about the last 11.
Okay.
So
How much are they for?
$17.50
Excellent.
from the RSA itself. But once they've gone,
They've gone.
that's it.
Yeah, and it ends up in collectors' pockets.
Yep, they
Yeah,
do. But
and
again, it's another sign of, of remembrance.
Yeah.
If they keep those coins,
it's passed on and
it's
passed
going to
on.
be passed on, and somewhere down the line,
Yeah.
children are going to see them. Or what was that put out?
Yeah.
Away it goes again. It's publicised about the armistice. It's publicised what the poppy is about. So yeah, it just keeps bringing it back into the forefront of everybody. So no, it's great to see.
In finishing, I just thought, I had a thought there. Oh yes, the RSA, I think it was last year, was mentioned that it's membership.
Yep.
And because of the older ones passing on, that the numbers are down because of that. But I think this sort of stuff is making us aware that we need to actually be in there.
Yeah, the membership is dropping.
Yeah, to carry that on because, and to learn from the elders.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the time when we don't learn it, like we were talking earlier, it goes away. We lose all that information and knowledge base. And so talk about the membership and how you guys are,
Well, basically the membership, it is dropping. Now, going back possibly 6-7 years, we had a membership in excess of 2,000.
Yeah.
Currently, right at the moment, I think our membership is 1,280, just on 1,300.
Yeah.
A lot of it, the drop is due to the veterans passing on, and the guys that are away at war at the moment or overseas serving in the armed forces. A lot of them don't want to come back and join an RSA.
Yeah.
They've been away. It's a different sort of setup.
Yeah.
Where they're fighting now to what it was. They don't want that constant reminder every day that I was with those guys and we lost 5 guys or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we are finding there is a big drop. What a lot of people don't realise is, the RSA stands for return. Now, the return is members of the public who have signed an allegiance to the Crown and gone away in defence of New Zealand or helping other countries. There's service. Likewise, gentlemen, men and women that have joined the forces but have not gone away. They have never left the country, so they can't be classed as a returned because they haven't been overseas. members like the police are service members, because again they sign an allegiance to the Queen. There are several police in Whangarei that have been away, and so they are classed as even as returned men. The other is, up till now, it's any members of the public can join, and up until basically beginning of this year they were called an associate member. Now for some reason that has been changed, and now they're just be classed as an RSA member. But those are, they don't have any connection with the armed forces, be it their father, their mother, their uncle, their auntie, anything. They could just be somebody who's left school, has turned 18. Once they turn 18, they're allowed on licensed premises, and that they can join. So I'll keep referring back to an associate, because that's what I am. I'm either an associate or a member, whatever you like to call us.
You're associating with RSA.
We're still associating with the RSA. So anybody can join. The joining process is basically filling in a form. You have to be nominated by an RSA member, seconded by an RSA member. It goes to a committee that goes through them, and if there's any checking necessary, we will. It's pretty basic, pretty simple. But again, we've got to safeguard our own membership, that we're not getting hoodlums. It is
people that abuse the system. And I've heard of that happening. And
obviously we want somebody who's basically has, how can I put it? I'm lost for a word. A connection somewhere along the line with the service. With the service, But it is definitely not essential. So as I say, anybody off the street could come in, fill in a form. We'll vet them as much as we can.
It's with anything. I mean, because
we charge a fee, obviously, but if we can get people younger, and especially younger ones, if we can get the younger ones in, it's a bonus. It really is, because it shows that younger group realise and know what happened, and they're joining for a reason. That's why you find, like in Whangarei, there's cadet forces, an Army, an Air Force, and the Navy cadet forces. We foster them as much as we can. We involve them in things at the RSA as much as we can. Flag bearers on Saturday, on Sunday. Flag bearers, the catapult party that is basically security around the cenotaph itself. And anything to do with the flags, we involve the cadets. They enjoy it. They're giving something back to the RSA. It's great. And as I say, the school's the same. So anything we can do. But we'll if we have to, we'll come along to the schools. We try not to go to the schools. And one of the main reasons, the schools, basically you're getting up to 16, 17-year-olds. We can't encourage them to come to an RSA or to a drinking facility area. So we have to be a wee bit careful. But they were still welcome to come.
with a guardian.
We can get them up. We can actually sign them up as youth members. So there is a possibility. That it's just that there is a lot more restrictions on what they can and can't do. But anybody is welcome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming in, and I'm sure everybody that's watching around and all over the world, basically, we have for this show we have American viewers as well as listeners, and so everything is recorded, and we get to share it with our friends, and that's the greatness of social media and all these digital platforms around the world where we can put it on and we can share it. Thank you so much. Any last words?
Well, it's funny you should just mention that. Just before I came down, I received an email from one of our members in Whangarei here, told me to go online on Google, and I clicked on it, and I actually clicked on your radio station. and which blew me away.
Yeah.
It has a map of the world, and it's got little green dots, and you tap on any of those dots, and it's a local radio station. And as I say, I thought we'd have a look at New Zealand, and top of the line was Whangarei.
Yeah.
So no, it gets out. I'm very thankful of having the opportunity to come along and have a chat to you.
Well, my mum was watching, and mum used to be a chef at the RSA.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so she spent a few years. I'm not sure if she was here. My timeline's all messed up, but you know, and my dad's a member as well, and yeah, it's incredible that we didn't used to celebrate or acknowledge it so much in the past as much as we do now.
Yeah, but yeah.
And
I think it will. In actual fact, I think it will grow.
Yeah.
Over the coming years, due to the youth being involved.
Yeah. So thank you so much. We are going to put a song here. This is a local, New Zealand band, Smash Mouth, featuring Jen Wigmore, and this is Brother. I have to go say hello to my next guest, who's actually watching us now on Facebook, Nicola. Hello. And so I'll say hello to them and get them in here, and we'll prep for the next interview. Thank you so much, guys, for watching in, and thank you, listeners, for listening to me every week here on Beagle Radio on the GeekOut show with Malfunction. So if you haven't been to our website, it's on beagleradio.co.nz. If you've got it, if you want